Yeah, today gonna be a real easy one, real quick one. It shouldn't take us more than 5 minutes for me to kind of go through some basics. Multiplying fractions, that's it. Multiplying fractions. We're gonna start with adding, then we're gonna talk about multiplying. All right, so multiplying fractions, right? First thing we gotta understand is what multiplication is. Multiplication ain't nothing but repeated addition. That's all you're doing. You're repeating your addition, all right? One of your goals of doing math, period, is to be efficient, all right? You don't want to take too much time to get to your destination. Second thing is you got to tell the truth at all times. You want to be truthful, all right? All right, so let's look at this. I have 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. So what we got? 2, that's 4, that's 6, that's 8, that's 10. So the answer is 10, all right? 10 is the answer. So it's cool when you expand things on the lower levels, right? So like if I have 2 plus 2 plus 2 and I'm doing that about 5 times, if you want to write that on paper, that's not too bad. What happens if I want you to repeat that 100 times? So if I wanted to add 2 100 times, I'm not going to write 2 on my paper 100 times and then add that up. It's got to be a better way, a quicker way. And that's why we use multiplication. So if I have 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, and that's equal to 10, the better way would be, or the more efficient way, it can be written as 2 times 5. That's where your multiplication comes in. Shortens all of that up. So remember, I teach high school. So what I've noticed is, especially with the fractions, there's still areas where they are struggling, right? So for me to kind of get them on track, I have to tell them the truth, right? I have to tell them the truth. Then I get questioned on that one, like, okay, I'm approaching them with some whole numbers, 2 plus 2, blah, 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 right? Question is, what does that got to do with fractions? We're not even talking about fractions. Yes, we are. All whole numbers are fractions. All right, so this is where I start getting them on track now. I come right back to the same problem. I don't even change nothing. I just put the over 1 everywhere. And you can't argue that. It's the absolute truth. And then I come down here and do the same thing. I say, okay, that's over 1. That's over 1. And that's over 1. Then that's when the real questioning starts, right? That's when I start asking them some questions. So I remember one time I was saying before in one of my other videos that math isn't just computations. That's just one piece of it. The real thing is your logic, your reasoning, being able to connect dots, draw conclusions, predict things. So at this point, it's very important that they understand there's a difference in the way we approach the addition part and the multiplication part. I asked them, how does this connect to that? And they said they added all of those. I'll say, what happened to the bottom? It stayed the same. Anytime you add or subtract fractions, you got to have a common denominator. That's number one. Once you have a common denominator, you can perform your addition or subtraction across the numerator, but the common denominator stays the same. All right, now, when we look at that numerator, how do those two numbers connect to that one? See, right here was an addition. They use what we call multiplication or your multiplication facts. Okay, so there's your 10. What happened across the bottom? Yeah, so we got to be real careful when we explain this. You did multiply across the top. That didn't carry over in the same way that this one did, all right? What happened down here was also multiplication, but I have to go into a second example to drive that point home. All right, so let's sum this up, what just happened here. We took this and added everything. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 is equal to 10. The 1 carried over because that's the common denominator. Here, 2 times 5 is 10. 1 times 1 is 1. So instead of 2 over 1, let's look at 2 over 3. Look at it, 2 over 3, 5 times. You get what I'm saying? I'm adding it up 5 times. And now I have a 10 over 3. Once again, once you drive that first one home, they can't argue with you no more. Hopefully you would have gotten your students' attention. At this point, they should connect that dot. Okay, you got a 10 over 3. But how do we write that as multiplication? Because we're not going to write this 5 times anymore. This is a quicker way of writing it. And then that's when they have to write 2 over 3 times 5. And there's my 2 over 3 times 5. Now remember, we already know what the answer is because we added it up already. The answer is 10 thirds. So I'm going to write 10 thirds. And if we make one minor adjustment here to this whole number, and we write it as a fraction, then you can start really talking about how this works. And there it is. 2 times 5 equals 10. That's what it says across the top. 3 times 1 equals 3. And that's how multiplication works with fractions. Yeah, so when you're multiplying fractions, there's no need to find a common denominator, none of that. All you do is multiply. Multiply numerators with numerators, multiply denominators with denominators, and that's it. So a common mistake is when someone takes the numerator and the numerator and the denominator, and multiply it times 5. Then they'll get a 10 over 15. That is not correct, all right? Not correct at all. Yeah, so with me, for me, it's always about placement. I see how things move. And so I always pay attention I like consistency. So like if I'm looking at this problem, I'm just going straight across the line. I'm going straight across the line. All right, so I guess that's it for today, though. I hope that helped. Just spend your time practicing on them. Remember, practice makes perfect. Studying does not make perfect in mathematics. Practice makes perfect.